scraping a little bit, but Django is always there. So yeah, and a year ago, I stumbled upon HTMX, and it was really interesting concept. When I asked around my colleagues, it didn't seem so popular, and yeah, started doing some pet projects. Was really surprised how cool is it, and yeah, here I am trying to spread the word. So let's start maybe with the problem. Who or how I got interested into HTMX. So after a couple of years of developing backend, you become pretty good at it. Maybe the endpoint creation can be done in 5 minutes. Maybe you start getting into data engineering, DevOps, cloud computing, etc. And working on multiple projects. Finally, you start getting your own ideas. Maybe some proof of concept. Maybe you want to start a startup, and inevitably you will get to a question, what about user interface? Because no matter how beautiful our JSONs are, usually users don't read them. So yeah, what to do? Should you learn front end? But being up to date on flavor of JavaScript of the day or month or year is quite exhausting. It's actually a full-time work. And yeah, let's not go there. Then you remember that actually Django does not only serve JSONs with Django REST framework, but it also was built with its own template language and, of course, Jinja templates, whatever you like. However, it feels kind of old. Every action or click usually results in full page reload, and who does that these days? We want our single page application. And yeah, limited interactivity, and if you want to overcome these things, when you get to JavaScript reliance, spaghetti code, etc., yeah, let's not go there either. And here comes the topic of the day, HTMX. So what is HTMX? Well, first and foremost, it's a JavaScript library, not a framework, as they say. That's a nice job to React. And actually, they are trying to reduce the amount of JavaScript code in our application. So it is built quite a bit like relying on this Ajax. And if you would ask your older colleagues who worked 10 or 9 or 8 years, what are they thinking about Ajax? Probably you will not get the best responses. However, in HTMX, it's very nicely abstracted away, and probably you will never need to write it your own. It also allows experimental access, but also now quite, I think, production-ready access to WebSockets and server sentiments if you really want to spice up your application. And it's quite lightweight. It's compared to like traditional React, Angular frameworks. It is dependency-free, extendable, and has quite nice browser compatibility. So let's see how it actually looks. So this is the simplest example. Like we have a button, and there's some result in div, line 10, 11, 12. And let's grasp 4 core ideas. So first one is any element, not just anchor tag and form, can actually issue HTTP requests. As we see here, it's a button. It also can be a div. It also can be a paragraph. So yeah, that opens up quite a bit of options. Second one is that any event, not just a click or submit of form, can trigger the request. So we can actually like use on mouse hover, on key press, maybe on some I don't know, delay or whatever. Basically, the full scope is accessible for you, so you can use your imagination and do some really dynamic stuff. Third one is that any HTTP verb can be used. Usually with anchors we are using get, and with forms we're using post. However, with HTMX, as you can see here, it's using HX post, but you can also use hxput, hxpatch, or delete. Basically, you can be pretty descriptive of what you actually want to achieve. So that's cool. And the fourth, and maybe the most important one, is that any element can actually be target of the response. So maybe I didn't mention this, this is pretty important. We want to receive not a full HTMLs from the server. We are trying to get some partial HTML piece of code, and we will be replacing some piece of code in our bigger structure. So that's why we don't need that full page reload, and yeah, it seems up to date, let's see. So yeah, any element can be the target. In this example, we see that our target will be element with ID result. Our swap strategy will be outer HTML, which means that we will be replacing line 10, 11, and 12, like the whole div, with whatever we are getting as a response from the server. Okay, so let's see it in action. Before that, how to start. Usually, front-end requires some bundling, compiling. There's some stuff to do. With HTMX, in your base.html, you copy-paste this one line of code, and it's good to go. The example seen previously will start working out of the box. Maybe for production, you will actually want to serve it yourself, just for safety reasons. But yeah, to start off, this is enough. Okay, so first example. We see two selectors. First one is for course, another is for module. So when we select physics, we see physics-related modules. When film study-related modules. Pretty simple, but quite usable. And how to implement it. So quick refresh on the Python side. So we have two models, course and module. Module has a foreign key to course. So basically, a bunch of courses, modules are related to some course. Then we have this endpoints, URLs. So first URL is for courses, and it will return a full HTML. However, the second one is this partial, and it will return only the HTML piece which is needed for the second selector, and we'll replace it. And here's our views. So first of all, we have get courses, where we basically just select all the courses from the database and then render the HTML template with courses in the context. And for the modules, it's pretty similar, except that we are expecting to get the course ID, so we could filter out the modules that we actually want to show. Okay, so how does the HTML look? Here we have code of block for the first endpoint, and the HTMX related part is here. So our trigger here is change. So whenever the first selector is gonna change, we will issue a GET request to modules endpoint, and our target will be element with modules ID. So it's in lines 12, 13, 14, and that will be a second selector, and our a piece of code. By default, it's gonna be inner HTML, which means not line 12, 13, 14 will be replaced, but only line 13 with this piece of code. So nothing HTMX related, just a selector, which is basically constructed with modules related to that course. Okay, next example, active search. Pretty cool thing, every website needs it. So you write something in the prompt, and it filters out results on the spot. So pretty nice feature. How to implement it? So here's our HTML part. Of course, the Python is pretty simple. We just tell what string we want to search by, and we run the search, and we return the result. So HTML is only important here. Here, the HTMX related part is this. So on our key up event or on changed event, after half a second of delay, we will trigger a post request. Of course, we could use get, but I just wanted to show post. And our target will be results. And why I wanted to show post, it's because, yeah, we need to add a CSRF token for it to avoid errors. And yeah, this is the code that it's going to be returning. And basically, it's going to be just a list of films that we saw like below the search bar. Okay, third thing I wanted to show is this infinite scroll. As you can see, it nicely scrolls down, but in the developer toolbar, we see that it's opening page 2, page 3, page 4, and then finally stops. It stops. Yeah, so how to implement this thing? So yeah, from the backend side, we want a simple paginated response. So we will be, and of course, the list of films, and we will be iterating over this film list. If the item will be last in the list, so basically the page, and we have a next page, then we will create a div with some special parameters. So our trigger will be revealed. So once we see it on our screen, we will issue a GET request for basically the list of next page items. Our swap strategy will be after end, and our target will be this. So basically, we will be attaching next page results to the bottom of the list, which is very good for infinite scroll, of course. Yeah, and here is just a basic, one item on which we can like press and open the detailed view. But what I wanted to show is we also have like ability to push something into URL. So basically, if a user clicks back, he will come back to list view. And still, no full page refresh, no nothing. Everything is modern and single page application like. Yeah, there are multiple examples I would like to show, but time is limited. But basically, I wanted to show you that you can actually go to htmx.org/examples, and there are a lot of like already built solutions, pieces of code with explanations where you can basically copy paste thing and have a thing working. So if you wanted a progress bar, drag and drop, lazy loading, tabs, it's all there. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk a bit about pros and cons of this approach. The pros are, of course, better SEO results. Search engines love HTML. And right out of the box with this approach, we will basically solve this problem. Basically, we will not have a problem which many modern approaches are facing. Then our state will be managed only on the backend. So if you have worked with backend and front-end teams, usually the state or business logic is usually replicated on both sides. Hopefully it's in sync, but it's not always the case. So here we will not have this problem. It's all going to be in the backend. When you change some endpoint results output, you will not need to have endless meetings with backend and front-end teams as well. The code base also is usually reduced, as we'll see in examples. The users of this technology feels more productive. It's easy to test, also a big plus, because the front end usually, or in some cases at least, don't really test their code. And on the back end, we usually test with JSON at least. And if you can test JSON, you can test HTML. So that's cool. And I think even from those few examples, you have a basic grasp of what you need to start using it. So the adoption rate is quite fast. Of course, there are some cons. So first of all, mobile application development will need additional effort, but that's understandable, I think. Even if you're using React, you will need to use React Native or something to make it like a mobile application. Offline capabilities, well, there are none, of course. If you will be out of internet, every click will not be able to send this AJAX request under the hood, and the application will be more or less useless. But I think for the front end approach, you will also need to spend more time to make it really offline capable. Yeah, so for extremely dynamic applications, it's also not the best solutions, but I'm talking about maps, games, spreadsheets, basically anything that needs a lot of computation on the client side. And I think that's quite reasonable and is not the majority of use cases that we want to solve. And yeah, as you maybe noticed, with this approach, we are creating quite a few HTML templates, quite a few partial HTML templates, quite a few function-based views. And if you're doing it without I don't know, a bigger picture, it can get messy quite fast. So yeah, organize everything into nice directories and you'll be good to go. Yeah, after these cons, maybe you're thinking, but can it actually work in production? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. The most legendary example already for that is Contexte. So they had a Django or PyCon talk 2 years ago where they presented their case. So basically they have converted in 2 months their whole code base from React to HTMX without any reduction in user experience. So it's quite powerful. And yeah, with quite impressive numbers in code reduction, basically they shaved off 2/3 of their code base with minor increase in Python code. Their web build time was a lot faster. Users could start actually using the application 50% faster. And one unexpected outcome was we actually could show a lot more data on the website itself, because it didn't need data handling on the client side, which was the bottleneck. But basically they were serving ready to use HTML, and basically you can load quite a bit of data with that. Another one is OpenUnited, and yeah, basically they also converted in a few months from React to HTMX with similarly impressive numbers in code-base complexity and code reduction. But I'm mostly impressed by this subjective thing that their developers felt 5 times faster when developing with HTMX, which is very impressive. And I think any team lead or technical manager would love to hear this from their engineers. Okay, so if you would like to try it out in production, probably Django and HTMX is not going to be enough. But it has a stack suggestion. So Tailwind is preferable for making it look nice, basically taking care of CSS. And Alpine.js for any dynamic functionality which is not covered by HTMX out of the box. And why this stack? Well, all of these, they share this locality of behavior concept, which means if I see a button, I am capable to understand what that button actually does. So Tailwind CSS uses predefined classes that everybody should use. And Alpine.js also has this nice syntax, which basically is seen in the element itself. So, of course, HTMX, as you have seen, it also shows what is the trigger, what is the swap strategy, what endpoint will be called. So, yeah, it works really nice together. Yeah, so if you really don't have time or energy to dive into all that complicated JavaScript stuff, but you love your Django and you want to have user interfaces, maybe HTMX is the answer you were looking for. Thanks, and if you have some questions or want to contact, here's my contact information.
Any questions from the audience? Yeah, please.
Thank you very much for the presentations. If you're a backend developer, I really appreciate getting rid of JS nonsense. Just a quick one. So you mentioned in the pros about the improvements for SEO, because it does have some server-side rendering from Django, obviously. But for example, if we're looking for your example with like infinite scroll.
Yeah.
So SEO engines, they normally kind of parse the HTML to see the links to the other pages, so they can actually crawl the web pages. So in this case, there are no kind of clear hrefs, because it's all dynamically loaded, and you post your URLs in the custom attributes of the elements. How will it help?
Good question. Well, I think like when we are serving the template itself, like the last element will have the actual URL of like next page. So if like the crawler will be able to open it up, it will get information about the next page. So I'm not sure if it really will work, but basically we are providing much more HTML out of the box without any like energy spent out of the box. So that's why it is improved, I suppose. But of course, there are issues, and if it becomes a real big issue, then yeah, you need to spend some time to solve it.
Any other questions? There was a hand, please.
Yeah.
Good ways to use HTMX.
Yeah. So the perfect example is usually said like a perfect example for HTMX use case is Gmail. So you have quite a lot of information. Maybe some press of a button needs to update dynamically other part of the screen, but you don't have like super a lot of dynamicity in the page. So yeah, and myself, I'm using it for my like pet projects. For example, if for dashboards, for backends, for your like I don't know in-house tools. Where you really don't want to spend like a lot of money and energy and time on the front end, it's a perfect use case.
Thanks. Yeah, final question.
With HTMX, how about the network throughput? Because like normally if you use some web framework like React or something, your frontend needs just some JSON from your backend API, and that JSON is usually very lightweight compared to those bulky HTML templates that now your server has to return. So don't you think that's an issue?
It can be an issue, but still, it depends on the use case, because as we've seen from the context example, okay, they were using React and providing JSON. However, that JSON had to be basically chewed up by the front end, and it was choking, and they couldn't show as much data as with HTMX approach, where you already like chew up on the server side and provide the information. So that's of course a perfect use case, but that's quite an I don't know, popular example, I would say. So I think in majority of cases it will be good with that.
Any final question? 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Eimantas. Big applause to him. Thank you so much. If you're staying, the next talk is about building AI startup with async Django. If you want to switch, it's time to go.